Good morning. Happy new week, everybody who is checking in. We're going to get started in one moment. Let's see if I can pin a comment here on TikTok. I keep trying to do this and then it keeps not working. I don't know why they won't let me pin a comment, but I guess I could pin somebody else's comment, but I can't pin my own comment. So let me see if I can pin somebody else's comment. I can't pin that. I'll see if I can try that out that way. But for whatever reason, they won't let me pin a comment. I can pin one on Instagram. I can pin one on Facebook. I can pin on other platforms. But for some reason, TikTok's not allowing me to pin comments. I don't know if this is a bug or they just set it up that way. Either way, we're going to keep it moving. Today, y'all see what the topic is, folks. I told you I was going to talk about this week because this is something that I touched on in last week. So last week I was talking about how the middle class is disappearing. And I mentioned generating or creating assets for your business. And someone mentioned that that'd be a good topic to talk about. So here we are talking about it. So you'll know that this is not generic. I am not colored by numbers. Somebody says something that sounds like a good topic, then I will go ahead and talk about it the same way that middle class topic was actually something that was a response to a comment that someone had posted. And I'm going to create assets out of the fact that somebody even asked that. So that's what we're talking about here today. We're going to talk about two sides of this. First of all, I'm going to help you all understand the mindset behind creating assets for your business. And you do not need to own a business for this stuff to apply to you. So what I'm going to share here today can apply to any of you, even if you are a student, you could be an athlete, you can be in between working opportunities, you can have a full-time 9-to-5 job, you could have never been an entrepreneur ever in your life. What I'm going to, let's see, to give me an opportunity over here on TikTok to pin my goal. So let's see if that works. For some reason, they're not letting me pin the comment. But anyway, this could be for any of you. Again, even if you never started a business before, you never run a business before, maybe you have no idea even what to do. What I'm going to share here today is going to be digestible, applicable, and understandable by everybody who's listening to it, even if you have no prior business experience. The good news about doing things in the business world as an entrepreneur, especially in the world that we live in today, is that you do not need a college degree. You don't need any type of specialized knowledge. You don't need to have any certain certifications or trainings to do this stuff. You can apply these things. Again, I'm going to start by talking about the mentality behind it so you understand where I'm coming from. And then we're going to talk about some tangible things that you can actually do when you run a business, own a business, or you're planning to start one, even if you're starting at absolute zero today. Everybody got that? Good. So first of all, let me introduce myself. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. Basketball is my sport. I created this brand called Work on Your Game. Underneath this, I've done 4 TEDx talks. I've written 35 books. And this brand Work on Your Game is all about taking the stuff that helps athletes reach the top of their game. And we apply that stuff over in the business and the professional world, not the doing sit-ups and push-ups and lifting weights part, but the mentalities, the strategies, the systems, and the accountabilities, all the things that help athletes be the best at what they do. This is how I help professionals be the best at what you do. Everybody got that? All right, so let's get into it. So we got 6 points really I'm going to go over here, 3 on mindset, 3 on applications. First, let's get clear on what an asset actually is, because again, for those of you who are not familiar with me, anytime I'm talking about a topic, I like to give a definition of a word, especially when I'm using a word that most of you have heard before. And I want to make sure we're all on the same page as with regards to how I'm using the word, because all of you have heard of the word asset. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page as to what exactly I mean when I say asset. Okay, so definition of an asset out of the dictionary means a useful or valuable thing, person, or quality. So an asset can be, if you're a friendly person, that can be an asset for building relationships. If you are tall, that can be an asset for playing basketball. Or if you're pretty, that can be an asset for getting followers on social media. So that's the basic definition, the everyday definition of asset. Now let's go further and let's talk about the business definition of asset, or the financial definition of asset. If we got any accountants in the room, they can verify this. An asset simply means something that's putting money in your pocket. That's what we're really talking about here today. So I don't just mean a valuable or useful thing. The definition we're going to be going off of here today is an asset is anything that is actively putting money in your pocket. It doesn't have to do it over and over again. If it does it one time, it's an asset. And if it's doing it month after month or day after day, that's also an asset. For example, or just to help you all understand, that something can be an asset and a liability at the same time. And again, we're talking on a financial level here. I'm talking on a money level. Okay. So when you go buy a car, at the moment that you spend the money for the car, it's a liability because money is coming out of your account. You have to give money to whoever is selling the car. It's a liability in that moment on your balance sheet because money is leaving the account. If you turn around and sell that car 3 years later, it's an asset at that moment because it's putting money in your pocket. Now you can balance those two out by looking at how much you paid for the car versus how much you sold it for, and say overall this ended up being a liability, but at the same time you can consider it an asset because you got usage out of it. So let's say you buy a car for 50 grand, you sell it for 30 grand. There's a $50,000 liability when you buy it. Let's say you bought it in cash and you sold it in cash. There's a $30,000 asset when you sell it. Now you may say, well, overall that's a $20,000 loss. Well, not necessarily. Well, you got $20,000 worth of use out of the car. Was it worth it for however long you had the car? That's up for you to decide. The whole point is asset means putting money in your pocket. All right, everybody got that? So what we're going to talk about today is building assets and things that will put money in your pocket either one time or continually. Number one, first thing you need to understand when we're talking about creating assets in business is you want to focus on some work that can pay you back more than once. You want to focus on work that can, and by the way, I'll respond to all comments and questions at the end. I see that comment. Somebody said you used to watch. I think you knew me from the YouTube, Worthy. I appreciate that. So first thing is, what kind of work can you do that can pay you back over and over and over again? Now, some of you, depending on the business that you're in or the careers that you're in, some of you are in careers that are already set up for this. For example, some of the clients that I work with are in the insurance business. Any of you knows anything about insurance, actually, most of you probably know something about insurance, whether you sell it or you pay for it, is that you got to keep paying every month, right? And the good thing about that is that you get the renewals, and as long as your insurance clients keep paying their insurance bills, their premiums, you keep making a residual on all those sales. And then you have a book of business and you can sell your book of business, you can retire out of business, and you're still getting paid month after month because your clients keep paying for that insurance. That's an asset. Every time you acquire a new client and they keep paying their bill, that's an asset. If you own, for example, this morning I was in the gym working out. Any of you who goes to a gym, how do you pay for a gym? You don't pay one time, you pay over and over again. Every month you got to keep paying that membership. So if you own a fitness facility and you have people paying every month, the membership itself is an asset, or the members are an asset, because the members every month, they have to pay whatever it costs to go to that gym, whether it's $10 a month or $300 a month. It's paying over and over and over again. So what I'm saying here is you want to focus on creating something, or think about how can I do some work that when this work is done, it will keep paying me over and over again. Now, let's be clear. When you have insurance clients, you still have to service your clients. Just because they became a client one time doesn't mean you never do any more work. If you own a fitness facility, let's say I was go open a gym, the Work on Your Game gym. I should open a Work on Your Game gym. So let's say I open a Work on Your Game gym. I still have to do things. Like we got to keep the bathroom clean. I got to make sure we're updating the equipment. We got to make sure if a customer has an issue, we deal with it. We want to maybe upgrade the facility overall, make it nicer, put a basketball court in there, get some new weightlifting machines, etc. You still are doing work. However, you have an asset because the money is getting into your pocket. So even if you're doing work, you still have an asset. Also, let's be clear. You don't necessarily have to have something that is recurring revenue, such as a membership, even though many businesses like to figure this out and get that in their business, because that means the money is always going to be coming in. Also, you can do some work one time and just figure out what's a way that I can leverage this thing. For example, those of you who are listening or watching me right now, you see these books behind me on the shelf. These are books that I've written. These books are assets. Why is this book an asset? I did the work one time, and I can sell this book over and over and over again to different people. There are 8 billion people on the planet. So even if I go sell 100,000 copies of a book in the first month and I make the New York Times bestseller list, there's still over 7 billion people on the planet who don't even know that the book exists, most likely. and they are still possible customers. So an asset can be anything that can or does put money in your pocket consistently. So if you have the ability to, let's say I write one book, let's say I have one book, any of you goes and writes one book. Every time you sell that book, it's an asset because it's putting money in your pocket. All you need to figure out is how can I keep marketing and promoting the book that I have so that more people can go buy it. You make an online course, same thing. If you sell clothes, for example, now you got to keep making another copy of the clothes. Let's say you sell swimwear and you sell one of your swimsuits to someone who wants a swimsuit. Now, as long as you can go manufacture another swimsuit, it costs you $2 to manufacture, but you sell it for $50. That's an asset because it's putting $48 in your pocket. So an asset is just simply anything that you can get paid for more than once. Doesn't matter what kind of work you do. And you want to make sure that the time that you're investing in your business is going towards asset building, not more towards maintenance activities. And this is something that any of you who is a business owner, especially those of you who start out as solopreneurs, which I did, this is one of the traps that we fall into. Some of you may find yourself in this trap right now. And when I say solopreneur, all y'all know what that means, right? This person who starts a business and it's just you by yourself. The issue with being a solopreneur, the challenge that you eventually run into is that you're doing everything in your business, which includes the maintenance tasks, like checking email, responding to customer service issues, packing and shipping orders, updating your website. Here's the issue with that. None of those things are assets because you don't get paid for doing them. They're part of the job that it must be done, but it's not actually an asset because it's not putting money in your pocket because it's not a money generating activity. So as a solopreneur, eventually you want to graduate to, doesn't mean you got to go build a huge business with 1 million employees. Simply means eventually you want to start getting other people or other things, whether it's some type of software, artificial intelligence, or a human doing the maintenance tasks for you so that you can focus more on revenue generating activities or things that could possibly lead to revenue generating activities. So for example, me doing this live stream right here, I don't get paid directly to do these live streams, but I still do them. Why? Because I know from my experience and I also know actively that sometimes people will watch this live. They'll like what I'm saying. They'll like what they hear. They will come deeper into my world and they will become someone who is actually spending money. So this is an indirect way of me doing asset building things. Also, when I get done with this live, the recording of this live, I can use this as an asset to put my message out to more people who are not watching me right now, but 10 years from now, somebody could watch the same live or be a recording 10 years from now and it will still be valuable because this is not time sensitive. This is not a time sensitive topic. Everything I'm saying here today will apply 10 years from now, same way it would have applied 10 years ago. It is not based on the time that I'm actually doing it. So this becomes an asset. The only limitation is, can I figure out different ways to leverage it? And that's the biggest thing that's happening in the world today. Biggest opportunity for all of you. Again, I don't care what you do for a living. The biggest opportunity is figuring out ways to take the things that you already have and that you're already doing, and how can you leverage them in new and unique ways to where they create opportunities for you. This is something that, for example, the agriculture and food industry does really well, often to the detriment of us, especially here in the United States. So what they do is they take foods or they go make a food, right? They go manufacture food. So any of you know anything about this industry, you know that in the manufacturing process, there's a lot of waste product, stuff that they end up usually throwing in the trash. You're trying to make a sausage and you make the sausage, but there's a whole lot of waste product. They usually take that stuff and throw it in the garbage. But they said to themselves, someone really smart in that industry said, how can we take this stuff that we're throwing in the trash and how can we make another product out of this? How can we take trash and turn it into treasure? How can we make this into an asset? This is how you got hot dogs. So any of you who eat hot dogs know what you're eating. That's the stuff they used to throw in the trash. What they did was cobble it all together and put a fancy little name on it, and then they start selling it to you. That used to be trash. Now it's a product. They turn garbage into an asset, which is a great business idea. It's bad for your health. Do not eat hot dogs and watch what you're putting in your body. Watch some documentaries on that stuff. But the business example is what I'm talking about here. And it's the same thing for all of you. So if you're a content creator, for example, your content may not necessarily make you money. And all of you who was a consumer of content, you see how quickly content comes and goes, right? So I'm doing this live right now, and whatever number of people watch it. And 30 days from now, to most people, this content is going to be quote unquote old, right? It's old because it came out 30 days ago. They want something that came out today. That's the way we've been trained on social media. However, I would be foolish to let this content just become old and never use it again. So my job is to figure out ways to repurpose and repackage everything that I'm saying here. So I don't have to keep saying it over and over again, but I can still use it to serve other people. So if I want to teach somebody, let's say somebody doesn't know who I am today, but this time next year they hear about me and they're like, damn, Dre knows this stuff. I want to learn more from Dre. How can I learn about business assets? I got two options. I could either sit here and talk to them for an hour and give them the same information that I'm giving you all over again. That's not a good idea because now I got to use another hour of my time to explain it. Or I can say, well, go into Work on Your Game University. That's where we do our coaching and our programs. And I'll say, watch the replay of this stream that I did a year ago where I was explaining business assets. So now they learn, they get all the information, but it doesn't take any more of my time. So the recording that I'm doing right now becomes an asset as soon as I download the recording and I start using it in other ways. Everybody understand this? So your job is to figure out how can you take the work that you're already doing and how can you make it work for you more than once? How can you make it work for you over and over again so that your work is not just one-time work? The challenge with doing just one-time work is, folks, is that first of all, you have a limitation of time. And secondly, you can only get paid based on how hard you work and how much you get paid for your work. The issue is eventually you want to stop working. You want to go on vacation. Maybe you get sick. Maybe you break your arm. Whatever it is, you want to have the work that you're doing now still pay you even when you're no longer doing the work. So as people say, how can you make money in your sleep? You don't have to be sleeping. You could be wide awake, but you don't want to have to always work to make $1. If every time you make $1, you have to actually be working. The challenge is eventually you want to stop working. And there's only so much dollars you can get for the type of work that you're doing. Now, there are some people who can leverage that depending on what type of work you do. For example, what's an example? Let's say Taylor Swift. So Taylor Swift right now, at the day that I'm recording this, she just did 3 dates in Miami where I live. She did 3 straight concerts in Miami. She's that big of a star that she can sell out 3 concerts, 3 nights in a row. During those nights that she's doing the show, of course, she makes the money from doing the show those nights. The problem is, as soon as she stops doing the tour, the money stops. Now, with her, it's a little bit different because she gets publishing and royalties from the music when it gets streamed and all of that stuff. But let's just say she was just a performer. Or take an NBA player. They make money when they're playing in the NBA, but as soon as they stop playing in the NBA, the paychecks cease. And they don't have a way of making any money based on the work that they did back in the day. So like Michael Jordan is not collecting checks from the Chicago Bulls for the games that he played in 1995. He stops getting paid as soon as he stops playing. The good thing with being at that level, let's say athletes and entertainers, is that you can make so much money just on income alone that you can take that money and leverage it into doing other things if you're smart enough to figure it out. But not everybody does that. Most of you are not athletes or entertainers. Most of you are not Taylor Swift or Michael Jordan. Therefore, you need to think about how can you make your work that may not pay you nearly as much as them, how can you make it pay you over and over again? So again, you have some recurring income coming in. So I could talk just on this point alone forever, but we're going to move on. So you want to be looking for ways to build assets. Okay. Your time at work, you want to figure out how can I take this time to build assets? How can I do some stuff that will actually be worth it in the future, even if it doesn't do much for you right now? So for example, I told you I wrote 35 books. Let's say I go write 35 more books. All right. And with technology these days, I could easily write 35 more books if I want to focus on that. Now, what if I put out 35 books at the same time? Is anybody going to actually buy all 35 and read? I don't care if they read it, but are they going to buy all 35? Most people probably wouldn't do that. They might buy 1, they might buy 2, they might buy 0. Now, are those assets? They are assets if I learn how to leverage them. So this is the whole point. So with my books, let's say, for example, and this is actually something that I do, I put together a whole marketing plan, the sales plan for how to take one of my books, advertise it, market it, and sell it. So I could, when I'm gone 100 years from now, I could have my kids or my kids' kids still selling my books as long as they know how to sell them and get them out into the world. So it doesn't require me because the work's already been done. Like all the knowledge out of my head is already in the book. That's the asset. Now your ability to sell it becomes an additional asset. Everybody follow what I'm saying here? So this is why marketing matters so much in business. When you know how to market, you can sell pretty much anything. Moving on to point number 2. We're talking here today about business assets. First, we're on the mindset part. And next, we're going to get into the tangible part. Number 2, spend less time on junk food work. All right, junk food work is the kind of work that you get paid for right now in the moment. But as soon as you stop doing the work, you can't get paid anymore. This is not bad work. The problem is, I just told you, as soon as you stop working, the money stops. So you want to be careful of how much time you're spending on that versus how much time you're spending on asset building, because if you don't build any assets, eventually you're going to stop working, like retirement, like sickness, like getting fired, like getting laid off, like your job being replaced by artificial intelligence. Now, what are you going to do? Because the money stopped because you stopped working. So this is something you want to be thinking about. And there are a couple of ways that you can do this. One thing is you can take the money that you make at your job, if you're getting paid based on effort, and you can invest in assets that will pay you that have nothing to do with the actual work. So let's say you're a secretary and you're making 50 grand a year. You can take some of your paycheck and put that into some stocks and bonds, or talk to your financial advisor and let them tell you the best things you can do with that money. And that money can grow, even though nothing you're doing as a secretary is going to pay you after you stop working when you retire. You can still build an asset over here, or you can invest in some real estate that can pay you money. And none of this is financial advice. By the way, I'm not telling you to buy stocks and bonds. I'm not telling you to invest in real estate. Those require you knowing a little bit more details and doing your due diligence on what makes sense. The whole point is you can take money from your employment and invest in something that has nothing to do with your job. But I'm making this message specifically for the entrepreneurs out there, where you can do this within your job, but you can do it outside of a job. If you happen to be an employee working somewhere where there's no asset building opportunity for you, I would suggest all of you do something entrepreneurial on the side, even if you're not going to do it full time, because it gives you more autonomy. When you have employment, you have no control over how long you keep that employment, unless you happen to be a tenured professor at a university. Even then, you come out with the wrong opinion, they can remove that tenure. They can find a reason to fire you too. Any of you who's a full-time employee, you don't have anything entrepreneurial going on the side, I would suggest that you change that, because again, a boss can fire you whenever they want. A company can lay you off whenever they feel like it. And I know people, as a matter of fact, there's somebody I need to call today. As a matter of fact, he reached out to me. He was working at a company, and he said, Dre, can you come speak at this event that we're having at our company? And this is a corporate business, I'll say that. And I said, sure. We worked it out. We did the contract, all of that. And then a few weeks later, he sent me an email and he said, Dre, this is going to be my last day at the company, but I'll pass you off to this person. They're going to be basically doing my job. And the job that I used to have, now they're going to take it over and they'll take it from here. Me and you will talk later on the side. And I'm going to call him today to find out what the hell happened, because I don't think he was planning on leaving the company. It didn't sound like it. I think this might have been an abrupt thing, whether he chose or they chose. The issue is this happens to people in business all the time. All right, some of you probably have had this happen. You had a job, everything was going good, and then one Tuesday you walk into the office and they tell you you don't work there anymore, and you didn't even do anything. You didn't mess up. You didn't cuss out the boss. They just fired you for whatever reason. You don't even know. And this happens in business. This is the problem with, if your only income is from full-time employment, is that they can get rid of you whenever they feel like it. And a lot of companies have this ability. It's in the contract. Some of y'all didn't read the fine print, but they can do this. All right. They can fire you with or without cause when they feel like it, because they run the show. I remember I had a friend of mine years ago. It's probably about 10 years ago, less than 10 years ago. But I remember she reached out to me. She knew I was an entrepreneur. She said, Dre, do you know any people who might be looking to hire someone? Because her career, she had worked as an executive assistant. She was an executive assistant for many years, and she was doing pretty good at her job. And she worked at this high-rise building not far from where I am here in Miami. And she reached out to me and said, you know anyone who's looking to hire an executive assistant? I have a lot of experience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I needed an executive assistant, but at that point, I wasn't in a position to hire her. I said, man, I wish I was in a position to hire you, but I can't hire you, and I don't know anyone who might be looking, but I'll put some feelers out and see. And then I just happened to ask her, because again, I had a relationship with this person. I said, why did you get fired? What happened? Why did you get fired from your job? And she said, no reason was given. It was just a random day. They just fired her. All right. And again, this happens. So when you are employed, you want to understand this, that you're in a precarious position, that your employment, i.e. your paycheck, can go away whenever they feel like making it go away. Not necessarily because they're trying to hurt you, but because they're focusing on the overall business more than they're focusing on you as an individual person. And again, I'm gonna take questions and comments at the end. So any of you leaving anything, I'll get to it when we're done. So junk food activity, I'm talking specifically to entrepreneurs when I say this. Junk food activity is the stuff that you get paid for right now. And it feels good. It's good to get paid right now. But at the same time, you're not putting, what happens is we start focusing so much on the junk food that we forget to focus on the whole foods, like the meat and potatoes, the stuff that will pay us later on. So the junk food stuff is me doing some type of work that I get paid for in a moment, but this is not building an asset. And what you should do as an entrepreneur is take the money that you make from junk food activity, like you sign up a coaching client or you do a one-on-one call and you get paid for it. Take that money and figure out how do I pour this into something that will actually build an asset that will make me money in the future. That's the discipline to set it up. And I'm speaking very high level here. We could go much deeper in this. I could do a whole course on this. And as a matter of fact, I have, and we'll do more, but I'm not going to go too deep in this. But everybody knows what junk food is, right? Who doesn't like Snickers bars, cakes, soda, candy? Everybody likes this stuff. And there's a reason why junk food is junk food, because it's addictive. It's much more fun to eat a Snickers bar than it is to eat some green beans and spinach and mashed potatoes and steak for many people. So you want to focus on time perspective here. What time perspective means is, in a general sense, the more successful the person, the further into the future they project their actions. They project the ramifications of their actions. The more successful the person, every time they take an action, they think further into the future. What is this going to do for me a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Whereas the less successful individual, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not successful at all, but less successful, they only think short term in terms of their actions. Okay, so I'm going to do this thing right now, and it's going to make me feel good in 5 minutes. So I'm going to feel good in an hour. I'm going to feel good tomorrow. Whereas the more successful person says, yeah, I may feel good in an hour today and tomorrow, but what is this going to do for me 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And the more successful person, because they are projecting the ramifications of their behavior further into the future, they tend to make decisions that tend to pay off in the longer run. Whereas the less successful person only thinks about the short run. The issue with everybody is eventually we all get to the long run. See, this is the issue with focusing on junk food, is eventually you get to 20 years from now. And since you never planned for or thought about 20 years from now, 20 years from now still happens. And since you weren't prepared for it, now you get caught out there, not knowing what to do. So I remember I was talking to one of my college basketball coaches, who I'm still in touch with to this day. And I remember he said this to me like 10 years ago. I was talking to him, and he was retiring from working at the school that I had known him from. And one of the things he said to me was, Dre, one thing I'll tell you as an older guy, and he's probably like, how many more years older than me? I think he's like 80 something now. And so he's like 40 years older than me. And he said, Dre, one thing that I didn't do when I was younger that you should do now is you need to focus on what you're going to do after you stop playing. After you stop, well, at the time I was still playing professional basketball. And then I had no business stuff that I was doing on the side that he knew about. He said, I should have thought about this stuff when I was younger. And now I got to figure out what I'm going to do to make sure that, the money's continuing to come in while I'm still alive, right? Because nobody knows how long they're going to live. Like, some of you might live to your 60, some of you might live to your 100. That's 40 years. What if you live till you're 100 years old? What are you going to do? What if you retire when you're 65? That means you got to live for 35 more years. How are you going to pay for that? Let me help you out. The government ain't paying for it. And if they do, you're going to not be living the way that you want to live. Or then maybe you could depend on your kids, if you have any, if they're in position to do so. Or you're going to be dependent on some other type of assistant. I don't think any of you assistants, I don't think any of you want to be in that position. So again, this is why you want to focus on what can keep money coming in for me in the long run, depending on how long I live. Like, what if you live till you're 100 years old? Some of you listen to this, you're 35. You got 65 more years to live. You might not be working till you're 100. You'll see people who are 100 years old. What kind of work can they do? They can barely walk or talk, let alone can they do any serious work that is worth any serious money. So what assets can you build now that'll put you in a better position for that future if and when it happens? Okay, so this is focusing on the whole foods, so to speak. All right, everybody understand the difference here between the junk food and the whole foods. Again, not that you can't engage in junk food, but eventually you got to sit down and eat a real meal as well. You can't you can't get up in the morning and do a long hour-long workout if what you ate for dinner was some cake and ice cream and a candy bar. All right, you ain't gonna have the energy. Moving on, number 3, we're talking here today about how to build assets in business. First, we're talking about the mindset piece. Third part, the same work that you're doing now just has to be arranged in such a way, it has to be set up in such a way that it has lasting power and is still valuable 5 years from now. This is what I just explained to you. How I could take this stream that I'm doing right now that y'all are watching live, and it will go away for most people. But once I download the recording, I can take this and say, all right, anyone who comes into our coaching program who wants to understand the concept of business assets, I can just send them the link to this video and they can watch this video, or we'll have it downloaded and it's in the back end of our university, because it won't be on these platforms for free anymore. And that is a way that I turn this that I'm doing for no fee. I'm not getting paid to do this. I can turn it into an asset because now people who are in our paid program can learn the same thing that I've already explained. So I don't have to keep explaining it over and over again. I can take all of this, and through the power of technology, I could turn this into a course if I wanted to. I could turn this into a book if I wanted to. And the good news is I'm not telling you all of this because I have some special powers that y'all don't have. All right, this is available to all of you these days. If you have some specialized knowledge, what we call intellectual property, the way to turn specialized knowledge into intellectual property, which is intellectual property just means something that is intangible, but it is worth money. So a personal trainer has intellectual property because they know how to help somebody get in shape, but it's not like you can hold the knowledge. You can't hold it in your hand. Intellectual property is a professional speaker, like a motivational speaker. That's intellectual property. They have the ability to motivate an audience and they can get paid to do it, but it's not like you can hold a speech in your hand. So intellectual property just means intangible things that are worth money. The ability to translate that into something that makes money is becoming easier and easier these days than it has ever been. And the speed of that ease is getting faster and faster. So these books that you see behind me, I had to actually sit and write these books. I mostly type them on my phone. I type really fast on my phone or on computers and things like that. But nowadays you have text to speech where you can just talk and it'll write down what you're saying. You have all types of technology that can do these kind of things for you. Now, you still need some knowledge to know how to convert this stuff and make it make sense. But the ability to do this is getting easier and easier. It used to be hard to write a book. You had to sit down and actually write with a pen to get a book written. And most people don't want to do that. These days, you don't have to do that. So all of you should be paying attention to what's happening technology wise, because it's going to be running our lives, whether you want it to or not. So the mindset of creating assets for your business is, again, doing stuff that you don't have to keep doing. OK, that's the definition of an asset as we just explained. So you want things to be producing money for you. That makes it a financial asset. And it doesn't have to be $1 million. It can be $1. You create a product you can sell for $1. That's an asset because now people can give you money. And the biggest jump in business, I was just telling one of my clients this yesterday, is from 0 to 1. That's the biggest jump in business, is from 0 to 1. Biggest financial jump you will have any of your customers make with you is going from not giving you any money to giving you $1 of money. Why? Because now they've gone from being a browser to being a customer. And when someone becomes a customer, now they're a buyer. And what we say in the sales world is a buyer is a buyer. What that means is people who will give you money, and people who won't give you money won't give you money. So you got the buyers, you got the freeloaders. Freeloaders are people who will load up on all your stuff for free, but they will never spend any money. The buyers are the people who will spend money. So again, $1, $10,000 is not that big of a jump. 0 to $1 is a much bigger jump. Why? Because this person has crossed the threshold from consuming stuff at no cost to committing to a financial investment. Again, $1 is a financial investment. Everybody catch me. Everybody catch what I said there. All right, now let's move into the action side. So what we're talking about here today, for those who came in the middle, we're talking about creating assets in your business. I just explained to you the mindset piece. All right, that was just the mindset piece. Now let's talk about actually doing this stuff. How do you actually begin? First of all, assets are usually a result of investments. What that means is an investment means you put something in now and you get something out later. So you have to be willing to invest in order to have an asset. So any of you who does actually get into like stocks and bonds, those are investments, right? You put some money in now and it doesn't make you any money today. But if the stocks and bonds are worth more money 5 years from now you have more money. Any of you who's in real estate or any of you who owns a home, you put the money in now and hopefully the real estate that you invest in is worth more money in the future. And now you have an asset, but it might take 6 months. It might take a year. It might take 10 years before it's worth what you want it to be worth. But you have to put the money down now in order to have an asset in the future. And the challenge for many people is that they simply don't want to make investments. Many people don't want to make the investment of putting anything down now in order to have more later, because what I just tell you about time perspective, the more successful the person, the further into the future they think about their actions. Whereas people who are less successful only think about right now. So someone who's less successful is only thinking about right now. They're like, well, if I put $1,000 down on this asset right now, well, I have $1,000 less dollars in my bank account. And they're like, well, where's my $1,000 going? Because they don't have the mindset to think about this $1,000 can become $5,000 in 2 years, but they don't have the discipline to let that happen. They don't have the mindset or the discipline to let that happen. Whereas, again, the more successful person thinking about the future, they understand the value of investments. Whereas less successful people only focus on cost. Cost is something that leaves and you don't get it back. Whereas an investment is something that leaves and theoretically you get it back. Let's be clear also, Just because you make an investment doesn't mean you're going to make money back. Sometimes you make an investment and you lose money. Any of you, again, in real estate, sometimes you made a real estate investment and you didn't make money, or you put money into a stock and the value of the stock went down. So you lost some money, but that's part of the game. Now, that's all in the game. There's no way to guarantee that there's no way to guarantee that you'll make money on every single investment. Now, there are people out there who say that, but if there was one guaranteed way, then everybody would be doing it, as they said. That's not the case. So be careful of anyone telling you that there's a guarantee. Very few things in life are guaranteed. So you will notice the main things that we talk about here are all interconnected. So if you listen to my material consistently, even when I'm talking about different subjects, the pieces all fit together like a puzzle. Why? Because a lot of this stuff is based in principle and things that are etched in stone. These are not just random theories. So serious people, I'm assuming that some of you listen to this, or hopefully all of you, are serious people. You make investments into yourself and into your business. Most important investment you should be making, especially those of you who are first starting out around these concepts, are investments into yourself. Now, how do you invest in yourself? Simplest way to invest in yourself is to do things like reading books, signing up for coaching programs, masterminds, taking courses. Why? Because you're investing in the most important asset that you own. Does anybody know what that is? Most important asset that you own is you as an individual person. You are your most important asset. If you have a job right now and you go and clock in at work, I mean, you may not necessarily clock in, but you get paid because you show up to work, you are the asset, because you going to work makes you money. Then what did I just tell you what an asset is? Anything that puts money in your pocket. So if you have a job, like for example, I was at the gym this morning and there's a guy and a girl sitting at the front desk. You walk in, they say, hey, how you doing? Those people. All right. When they show up to work, they are an asset. Why? Because they're getting paid for their time at work. That makes them an asset. Everybody understand this? So you are an asset. And good news is, or bad news, depending on who you are, you will always be around you. As long as you're alive, you'll be around. So the most valuable asset you own is yourself, because you'll never go away. You could buy a house and sell it. You could buy a car and the car gets outdated. You buy a phone, the phone gets replaced by the next phone. All right. You can buy a stock and sell the stock. You can buy a stock and the company goes out of business, but you will always be around. So you're the most valuable asset that you have. So the first investment you should always be making is investments into yourself, making yourself better, stronger, faster, smarter, more valuable, and able to produce more value in the marketplace. The more investments you make into yourself, the more value you can produce in the marketplace. Therefore, the more money you make, now you can take that money and you can use it in whatever way you want, reinvesting into yourself, investing into assets, investing into things that makes you better. This is one of the reasons why. And the last live that I did on Friday, I was talking about this book that I'm currently reading. I'm almost finished. It's called The Debt Trap, DEBT, Debt Trap. And it's all about how colleges started charging more and more money for tuition, and college tuitions just keep blowing up. And one of the reasons why they keep blowing up is because they sold people on the concept, the theoretical concept that makes sense on paper. That is, you should invest $100,000 in going to college because the knowledge and the skills and the credentials you'll get from going to college will make you a more valuable person, which means you can get a better job. And then the money you'll make at the job, you can just pay off the loans that you took out to go to college. Theoretically, that makes sense. On paper, that makes sense. But any of you who has student loans to pay back, you probably, or you heard, President Biden talking about canceling student loans. All of you understand that in theory, things may sound good, but then in practice, they don't always go the way that people think they're going to go. It's a theoretical good idea. All right, invest in yourself now so that you'll be more valuable in the future. I like the concept, but then you got to look into the details of how these things actually work. And y'all should read this book. Again, it's called The Debt Trap. I believe the guys, let me tell you the guy's name. Any of you who's actually going to go look up and read this book. It's called Josh Mitchell is his name. Josh Mitchell. And the book is called The Debt Trap. And this is, you got to look into the details of these things. So yes, it does make sense to invest in yourself, but you got to know why you're investing, where you're investing, and how you're going to make your money back. Anytime you invest in anything, the first question you should ask yourself is, how am I going to make my money back? Now, how do I get my money back after I made this investment? So the best investment, as I just said, is investment into you as a person, which is an easy way to tell. So for example, buying a gym membership, going to the gym every day and working out. All right, you can see that's an immediate trade-off when you do that work to make yourself better. Investing in buying a book and reading it, a book that will help you with your mindset, with your business ideas, with your strategies, with your execution, or make you a better person. That's an immediate trade-off. Buying the ticket to go to a conference so you can go meet other people who are also hustling, people who are also in the game, people who are trying to get better. That's an immediate trade-off. Signing up for a course or a mastermind or signing up for coaching. These are all immediate turnaround investments. Whereas when you make investments that are more indirect, like let me invest 100 grand and go to college for 4 years. Now you got to play out into the future. How does that actually turn around, and how much money am I actually going to pay off for those loans? Because the interest is accruing, and what kind of job am I going to get, and how much can I pay back those loans? How long is it going to take me to pay it off? All right, sounds good in theory when you're signing up, but does it actually make sense when you execute? Again, do your due diligence. All right, that's the phrase that I would say about that. When it comes to any investment you make that is not just a direct turnaround for yourself. If it's not a direct turnaround, like going to the gym, buying a book, going to a conference, signing up for a coach, those are direct turnarounds where it doesn't involve really what other people do. But investments that involve other people's stuff, like going to a university, buying a house, signing up for buying some stock, buying some crypto, you need to do your due diligence, because those are out of your hands once you make the investment. Someone asked over on YouTube, the name of that book is called The Debt Trap. And there are a bunch of books about college costs, but it's called The Debt Trap, DEBT, Debt Trap. And the author's name is Josh Mitchell. I'm almost finished reading it. Anyway, so folks, assets usually do not arise from short-term thinking and short-term perspectives. They arise from long-term thinking and long-term perspectives. How does this make sense for me in the future? Think about your kids. Any of you who has children. How can you do something now today? And I'm going to answer questions at the end, by the way. What can you do now today? Yes, Mr. O, you got it. What can you do now today that your kids can make money off of, that your kids can eat off of? See, when I make a course or write a book or do a training or something like that, my job is not only making that thing and selling it now. Of course, I want to sell it now because I want the money. But at the same time, how can I put together a system, a process to where I can have it documented and I can tell my kids, hey, here's all you got to do. Follow these 25 steps and you can keep making money off the stuff that I did back when I was doing my thing, and they can keep making money off it. And now they got money coming in consistently. They don't even have to necessarily go into the family business. They can just have the money coming in as long as they operate the system, and they can take that money and go do whatever it is that they want to do. So think about your kids. How can your kids eat off the work you're doing today? That's a good question you should ask yourself consistently. How can my kids, I'm not talking about right now, your kids can eat off it now because you can make the money and go buy them some toys. I'm talking about when you're gone, 50, let's say 50 years from now, you're gone, but your kids are still alive. How can they eat off the work that you're doing today? Ask yourself that question. Number two, we're talking here today, and again, this is on the tangible side, about building assets in your business. Number two, stop looking outside and start looking inside. This is what I was just telling you about when I gave you the example of how they took the scraps from when they make sausages and bacon, and then they took the scraps that they used to throw in the garbage, and they took those scraps and put them all together, and they created the hot dog. All right, so any of you who eats hot dogs, as you know what you're actually eating, what they did was the same thing I'm telling you to do. I'm not telling you to take garbage and turn it into something, but the concept I am telling you to do. Take the things that you may be overlooking right now in your own space, in your own mind, in your own business. There are some things there that could become assets if you learned how to use them the right way. There are so many products that we use these days that were quote unquote accidents that became great products because someone just asked themselves a better question. How could we use this even though it didn't do what we wanted to do? For example, there's a company called 3M. Most of you probably seen them. All of you have heard of Post-it notes. You know Post-it notes, the little sticky notes, little squares you could put on your computer screen or on a bulletin board. Post-it notes was an accident. Someone was trying to create an adhesive. They were trying to create a really strong glue, and they created a test run, and it didn't really work. And they said it only sticks a little bit, and it's this temporary stickiness, but it is not as strong as we want it to be. And someone had the idea and said, well, how could we use that? And they came up with Post-it notes. And Post-it notes are the biggest seller for 3M to this very day. Post-it notes have been out for 50 years, probably longer than that. And it was an accident. All right, Post-it notes are to the 3M company what the iPhone is to Apple. And it was an accident. They didn't even mean to do that. And this is what I mean. This is what I'm telling you all to do. Sometimes you may have something that you consider, all right, this ain't really working. It's not doing anything. It's not producing anything for me. But it could be really valuable if you just look at it a different way. So you just got to ask yourself, how could I do this? Give you an example. There are artists out there, like musical artists, who will put out an album that's like B-sides. Like they put their regular album out, like the songs that they wanted to put out. But then artists they'll probably have a whole bunch of songs. Let's take an artist. Let's take Taylor Swift. I mentioned her earlier. Taylor Swift probably has a bunch of songs that she recorded that she didn't want to put on her albums that nobody has ever heard. She might have 100 songs that she recorded and she liked them when she did it, but then when it was time to pick the tracks for her album, she said, no, that one's not going to make it. She could put out a whole album of just those songs, and I guarantee you it would sell because you got a bunch of fans. That's an example, and I bet at some point she's actually going to do that. She's going to take a bunch of songs that she never put out, and she's going to put them out, and that's going to be an album in itself, and some of those songs are going to become hit records because the fans love the songs. So what I'm saying to you all is stop looking so much to the outside for new things to do and look inside at what you already have and new ways of using what you already got. That's what I'm saying. Look for new ways of using what you already have going on. I've done this several times in business. To give you an example, the first product I ever created online was some of you, I see some people in the comments that used to watch me back when I used to do basketball content back in the days. So I started putting basketball content on YouTube in 2005. And I didn't sell anything. I had nothing to sell. I made no money off the internet until 2009. So for 4 or 5 years inclusive, I was just putting stuff out and not making any money, not even trying to make money because I was playing basketball professionally at the time. But somebody left a comment and said, Dre, why don't you just take the workouts that you do all the time and put them into some like way that other people can follow it and work out the way that you work out? And I said, okay, I'll do that. But I understood that there was value in it. So what I did was I started taking workouts I already knew how to do, stuff that I had done to make myself good at basketball. And I just started organizing them and making a system out of it. And then I started making programs and I started selling them to basketball players online for $4.99 a piece. The first product I ever sold was $4.99. And it was one for shooting the ball, one for dribbling the ball. And I just made a cheap little one-page website. Eventually, I moved it over to Shopify, eventually over to ClickFunnels, and just start selling those programs. All I would do is make a video on YouTube and do drills like I was already doing. Then I would tell people, well, since y'all are asking if you want a program for how to do more of this, then just click that link and go get the program for $5. And that's how I start selling things online. Now, what's the point? The point is I got that idea from a random commentator on YouTube, a person who I don't even know. They just left a comment and said, why don't you just take the stuff you already do and just organize it? And I said, that's a good idea. It was a great idea. Had I not been listening and paying attention, or had I just dismissed that person because I didn't know who they were, I never would have came up with that idea. So I didn't come up with the idea. I got somebody gave me that idea and I just took the idea and said, that makes sense. Later on, I got even more ideas as I move forward. And eventually somebody said, Dre, you're in pretty good shape. What about working out off the court? Now you got all these workouts for on the court. What about working out off the court? And I said, I can give you a program for working out off the court, but I knew that wasn't my area of expertise. I'm not like a strength and conditioning coach. I don't have a degree in kinesiology. I'm not a personal trainer. So I had a trainer and I went to my trainer and said, well, look, I'm trying to make this kind of program because the basketball players who follow me, they want to learn how to work out off the court the same way they work out on the court. And they saw I was in good shape off the court, but I figured somebody else could teach it better than me. So I went to my trainer and had her create a program. And we kind of co-created it because she used a lot of stuff that she was already helping me do and created a program for working out off the court. So again, these ideas don't have to necessarily come from you, but the resources to put them to work are already inside of your ecosystem. You just got to look at it a different way. The best way to do this is not to sit in the basement by yourself and just hope that the ideas appear out of nowhere. Is to just keep engaging and talking to people. Talk to other people who are in your space and see what they're doing. I look around, like I have a coaching program. I do consulting. I do speaking. I look around and I notice what other people who are in that lane, what they're doing. I notice how they're marketing their stuff. I notice how they make their programs. I notice how they work with their clients. And it doesn't mean I go copy everything they're doing. It's just, I'm just looking and trying to figure out where can I steal an idea from somebody else. There's a book out there called Steal Like an Artist. I don't know if any of you has heard of it. It's called Steal Like an Artist. The author's name is, I believe it's Cleon. His first name, I believe, is Austin. But I know his last name is Cleon, Kleon. The book is called Steal Like an Artist. And the very concept of the book is what I just told you. Like, y'all need to understand that people who appear to be, or maybe they are very creative individuals, we don't just come up with ideas out of nowhere. They don't just pop up out of the blue. I don't just wake up in the morning with 1,000 ideas for content. I've been creating content since 2005. And yes, a good amount of it I come up with because I have different ways of processing and coming up with my stuff. I have systems for that. But at the same time, a lot of my content ideas come from talking to my audience. So I just told you, the first product I ever sold on the internet came from a commentator on YouTube. Then I got another idea from another commentator on YouTube. Then somebody said to me, again, another one. I called these programs, the basketball programs, I called it Hoop handbook, like hoop for basketball, hoop handbook. And someone said to me, Dre, you always talk about mindset. Because at this point, I start talking about mindset because basketball players asked me about mindset. They said, well, since you have this program called Hoop Handbook and you always talk about mindset, why don't you make a book called The Mental Handbook? And one of my books is literally called The Mental Handbook. I don't know if I have any copies of it right now. I'm not sure I have any copies. We sold out a lot of copies. But I wrote a book called The Mental Handbook, not because I thought of it, but because someone who was already following me said, why don't you take basketball, hoop handbook, mindset, mental, and make mental handbook. He literally said mental handbook, and I called the book The Mental Handbook. So I'm telling you all that not to impress you, but to impress upon you that a lot of times your assets simply come from combining random things that you get from random places, and boom, there's a new idea. It doesn't all have to come from inside of your head. You don't have to be some type of, again, some wizard or genius. And most of the people you see out here who appear to be wizards and geniuses, it's not that they're not smart, including myself. It's just that we have a way of taking things from different places, bringing them to new places, and boom, you got a brand new idea. Let me give you an example of this that all of you can relate to. So y'all know how when you get a car, for example, some of you may buy a car or you might lease a car, right? Some of you have a car on lease right now. I tend to lease vehicles myself. So Apple, here's what Apple did. Apple looked at the auto industry and they said, oh, well, people lease cars. So you get the car for 2 years and then you bring that car back and then you get a new lease for the new car. Guess what they did? They did the same thing with the phone. Some of you got an iPhone on lease right now, right? That's the same thing. All they did was take an idea from the auto industry and they applied it to the phone industry. They took leasing and now you can get an iPhone, what they call it, iPhone for life or whatever they call that thing. I don't do that. I usually buy mine, but a lot of people like to lease theirs. So you lease the iPhone, you just pay it every month, whatever the cost is every month. And then next year, when the new iPhone comes out, you bring back the old one and you get the new one. And now they got you on a lease on an iPhone for the rest of your life. It's literally called iPhone for life. That's literally what they called it. So all they did was take an idea from one place and moved it over to another place. Any of you can do this. Now you need to have some tools. You got to have something that's worth it. The car business has a car. Apple has the phone. I had the knowledge, I had the skills, I had the audience. So you got to have some stuff yourself too. You can't just come out of nowhere, but you got to have some. When you have something that's useful and then you move it over to another space, again, borrow ideas from other industries. There's another thing that I'll tell you. So whatever industry you're in, all of you who are listening to this right now, don't limit yourself to just listening to people who do the same thing that you do, because often what you'll find is a lot of people are doing the same stuff. Doesn't mean that it doesn't work. You see a lot of people doing the same thing. There may be something useful there. At the same time, there's often something really useful in a whole other industry that will work in your space that if you looked, you would find it. So somebody who's a plumber could take something from what Apple was doing and they could use it in the plumbing business. Or somebody like a plumber, for example, I'm just making this up out of nowhere. Let's say I'm a plumber, right? I could go to all my plumbing clients in the past and say, listen, instead of paying me $300 to come fix your pipe when something goes wrong, how about you just pay me $50 a month every month? And as long as you pay that $50 a month, anytime something goes wrong, I'll come fix it. And there's no charge because you're already on the plumbing membership, right? I just made that up out of nowhere. But y'all could do that exact same thing. Just pay every month. And what they're doing actually is borrowing not even from the phone industry, they're borrowing from the insurance industry. That's what insurance is, right? You pay every month, even though nothing went wrong. You didn't crash your car. You're not sick. There's nothing wrong with your teeth. You pay the insurance every month just in case something does go wrong. Now you don't have to pay out of pocket because you already got the insurance, or you only got to pay a little bit because you already had the insurance. So again, just think of how you can borrow an idea from one space and apply it to another space. Look at places where people are already creating assets and ask yourself, if I was to do something like that, how would I do it? I'll give you one more example. I give you examples all day. As y'all can see, I like talking about this stuff, and hopefully y'all are getting value out of this. So the first business foray that I ever had in life was I was in college. I graduated college in 2004 to give you all a time frame. But in college, someone had a bulletin board posting and said, you want to make some extra money in the summer. So I responded to it. Turns out this guy was doing network marketing or multi-level marketing. Most of you have heard of it. Some of you have dabbled in it. Maybe some of you do it. So I didn't stay in network marketing, but I went to a couple of meetings. And the first company that I got introduced to was called, at the time it was called Prepaid Legal. Now it's called Legal Shield. Some of you might know about this. They actually have a very good product. So I got involved. I didn't stay in it again, but I got involved. And my first customer was my dad. And what this product was basically legal insurance. So you paid it price every month, and it was a low price. It was like $17, $30. Nowadays, like $50. You pay that every month, and what you get is access to a lawyer. They let you draft a last will and testament. And if you ever get pulled over by the cops, you can just call this phone number and you'll get a lawyer on the phone who can help you if the cop is kind of being a jerk or you feel like you might about to get arrested or something. And the lawyer can kind of help you in the situation. It's legal insurance. So you might go 3 months without needing anything legal based, right? And they also do things like look at contracts. So if you're going to write a contract, they'll look at it. Or if you're having an issue with your landlord, they can look at the agreement and they can write a letter for you on behalf of your law firm to kind of scare the landlord and doing what they're supposed to do. If AT&T overbills you for your phone, they can write a letter and kind of get the bill taken away. They can do all that kind of stuff for you, but you might go 3 months not even needing it, but you keep paying it. So just in case when you do need it, you already got it. All right. So they created legal insurance. And my dad told me last time I asked him about this, he said, I still have that membership. This is like 20 years ago. He still pays it every month and still uses it whenever he needs to. And he told me he's used it a few times, but some months he doesn't use it, but he still pays it. So again, ask yourself, what is someone else who already has assets, someone who has assets in their business? What are they doing? And how can I take that idea and apply it to what I do? Again, doesn't mean you need to go join their business. Like I'm not about to go start selling insurance. Probably not. But I can look at the insurance industry and ask what they're doing. And then I can ask myself, how can I apply that to what I do? How can I apply that to what I do? One way is that they do that in the legal industry is another way is that lawyers will have retainers. I don't know if any of you have a lawyer on retainer. What I just explained to you, Legal Shield is an example of a lawyer on retainer, but it's not like one person. But let's say a well-known lawyer. Who's a famous lawyer? I guess we don't know. Let's say Johnny Cochran when he was alive. He was on retainer to certain people. So let's say O.J. Simpson. I don't know if he had Johnny on retainer back then before he needed him, but let's say O.J. had Johnny on retainer. So every month, O.J. writes Johnny a check for $5,000 or whatever it is. And some months he might not talk to Johnny at all. But when he needs Johnny, because he's already paying that retainer, now anything he needs from Johnny, Johnny just takes care of it. He doesn't have to pay him extra. And he only has to pay him if Johnny has to go to trial. But anything else he needs, I need you to look over this contract. I need you to write up me a new contract. You know, I'm getting divorced. I need you to help me with this paperwork. I got a TikTok gave me the hour warning. All right, we good. I'm already on retainer. So now if I'm Johnny Cochran, let's say I had 10 people paying me $5,000 a month on retainer. That's $50,000 a month I got coming in, and I might not have to do any work for them. And if and when any of them calls me and needs some work, boom, I got it. And I'm willing to do it. Why? Because I'm already making $5,000 a month off these people. That's $60,000 a year from each person. And again, they might not use me that much to even be worth the $60,000, but it's worth it for them because they get the peace of mind. Again, let me stop with the examples because I'll take up all the time. Let's move on to number 3. And after I get done with this third point, I'm going to take questions after I recap. All right. So what we're talking about here today is how to build assets in your business. And I'm going to take questions at the end, by the way. One more point. Look at the day-to-day actions that you're doing and figure out how you can systematize them for them to keep happening without you having to do all the work. Let me say that one more time. Any of you who is an asset now, meaning you run a business or you have a job, whatever, look at what you're doing every single day and ask yourself, how can you systematize your work to where it can keep happening, but you don't have to do it all by yourself? How can you systematize your current work to make it work for you instead of you having to do all the work for it? Now, some of you may work at a job and ask yourself, well, Dre, how does this even make sense? How is this even relevant to me? I'll answer that question. It's a good question. There's a book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. If you haven't read that book, go look it up. Every book that you hear me mention, go get it. Okay, so it's called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Please, somebody put that book in the comments because there are some people out there who still have not read this book. Tim Ferriss wrote this book because he was running a business and he had a supplement business back in the day. And he was killing himself. He was working like 70, 80-hour weeks. He was making money, but he didn't have any time. So he created this book called The 4-Hour Workweek because he was figuring he was burning out. And he was like, I'm going to die young if I keep working like this. It's not going to work. So in that book, he is the first person that really popularized automation, automating your work through technology. And this is like 2007 when this book came out. Automating your work through technology, such as hiring people, outsourcing work to like people in India or Bangladesh or the Philippines to work for you, even though you live in America. You may never meet these people in person, but they can work for you and do things for you at much less cost of an American doing the work. And he gave many examples in that book. This is the reason I'm bringing it up. There are many examples in that book of people who work 9 to 5s using the stuff that Tim talked about. So let's say you have certain work you got to do. You got these spreadsheets and documents you got to do for your boss. You work 9 to 5. You can go to your boss and say, hey, boss, is it okay that as long as I get all this work done by Friday, is it okay if I only come into the office 3 days a week? As long as you know the work is going to be done, is it okay if I only come into the office Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday, I don't have to come in as long as the work still gets done? And the boss might say, yeah, that's completely fine. And then you can get the work done still by using technology, by outsourcing the people overseas, and they're doing work on your behalf, and you are still full-time employed. So you can still use this stuff. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. And some people may call that being an entrepreneur. The whole point being that automating your work, because you're still getting paid for 40 hours a week, but you're only working maybe only 25. Maybe you're only working 20 hours a week, but you're getting paid for 40. So now you just created an asset by creating a system. You get what I'm saying? Now the challenge with this is if your boss finds out what you're doing, then they might fire you and just have the people overseas do your work for you. So this is why I told you that you need to have some type of entrepreneurial thing going on the side. All of you, I don't care how good your job is. Have something entrepreneurial going on the side, no matter how great your job is. You notice that even people who play in the NFL and NBA, they got businesses on the side. Why? Because they understand that when that job stops, the paycheck stops. All right. And it's the same thing for all of you. When that job stops, the paycheck stops. So you want something that you have control over in the future. So for example, let's say you're a personal trainer. Ask yourself, how can you take the workouts that you put all your clients through already? How can you make that into a program so that your clients can learn from you without you having to actually be with them in the gym? How can you, if you live in Miami and you're a trainer and you got 30 clients, how can you train somebody who lives in LA without getting on Zoom, but you can actually make a program so they can learn from you? For example, I just gave y'all this example. My background is in basketball. I had a whole bunch of basketball players. We've sold tens of thousands of basketball programs to basketball players. I have never been a basketball trainer. I have dabbled and had a few clients here and there now and then, but I never was a full-time basketball trainer. All I would do is make content on the internet. Then I would make programs, and people all over the world have bought my programs. Most of them, I've never met them, but they can buy my programs and they can learn on their own without having to hire a trainer, which usually costs more money. We don't have to be in the same place, and human beings can only be in one place at a time. They got what they needed. I got what I wanted. Everybody wins. So you need to figure out, how do I make a process or a system out of what I'm doing such that the system is doing the work instead of the human doing the work. That's what systems are all about. So anytime y'all hear business people talking about systems, this is essentially what it means. It means you want to have an entity, that's the system, doing the work for you so that you don't personally have to do all the work. That's the whole point. And when you have a system, the good news is now you can get other people to do the work and the same outcome gets resulted, but you personally don't have to be there. So give you an example. I told you I work as a coach. There are people out there with coaching businesses where the main guy or main girl does not do most of the coaching. They have other coaches who are trained and certified to teach their system. So now let's say I got Work on Your Game University. I can create a system out of how I coach people, which I do have. I can hire you to be one of my coaches. So let's say I hire Mike, and Mike is one of the Work on Your Game coaches. So now if you sign up for Work on Your Game University coaching, now Mike will be your coach, but he's teaching you the same stuff that I have already codified and made a process out of. So you're still getting the value of my knowledge, but you don't have to personally talk to me, which means I can be on vacation in Hawaii chilling while you're still learning from me. I'm still making money. Mike makes some money. You get what you need and everybody wins. That's the point of creating a system. And I could do a whole lot just on systems alone. But this is the process of codification. Codification just means take the knowledge that you have and putting it into a system so that other people can learn from you without you having to say everything yourself. That's what codification means. It means you heard of coding, right? Coding just means taking a process, making it into a whole system itself so that the process works every time without you having to say it and tell the computer what to do over and over again. So as I told you, I could talk about this stuff all day. I won't. Let me recap my points and I'm gonna take questions and comments. So we're talking about how to create assets in business. First, the mindset piece. First, the definition of assets. In the financial terms, asset means something that puts money in your pocket. All right, that's what it means. So number one, focus on work that pays you back over and over and over again. That's the kind of work you want to be doing. Kind of work you do one time and it can make you more money in the future. Number two, spend less time on junk food work, stuff that feels good now but does nothing for you in the future. Be careful of this. It is very tempting. This is why junk food is popular. Number 3, this can be the same work you're doing now, but you have to set it up so that it has lasting power and is still valuable in the future, not just for today. On the flip side, the actions of building business assets. Number 1, understand that assets are usually the result of investments. So you got to figure out where can you make investments that will actually pay you back in the future. Think your time perspective. Are you thinking long-term or short-term? Number 2, stop looking outside and start looking inside. There are often assets laying there in plain sight in your business, in your world, that you are not using. Therefore, they're not making you money, not because they're not valuable, but because you simply have not thought of how they could actually be used to be worth it for you or worth something of value to other people. That's where the money is. Again, think about, they took the scraps that they used to make bacon and sausage and they turned it into what we now call hot dogs. Hot dogs used to be thrown in the trash. The stuff that they used to make hot dogs used to be trash. Then they turned it into a product. Same thing you can do. Stick-it notes. Post-it notes was a mistake. Someone was trying to create an adhesive. It wasn't strong enough. And then somebody said, how can we use this in another way? They created Post-it notes, and Post-it notes have sold billions of dollars of product over the last 50, 60 years. And it wasn't even what they were trying to do. Number 3, look at the day-to-day actions you're doing and figure out how they can be systematized to keep working, even if you are not doing the work yourself. When you can learn how to do that, you've opened up a whole world of possibilities, and now you can actually start helping other people instead of just helping yourself. All that said, let me not recap, but look at questions and comments. Let me start over on YouTube. Unbiased Sports, what's going on? Good morning. Mr. O said, The Illusion of College. I don't know if you're just saying that, if that's the title of a book, might be. Jessica, I think you got the title of that book. Yes, Mr. O gave it to you. The Debt Trap by Josh Mitchell was the college tuition book that I was talking about. Thug Nasty said, do y'all like crypto? No, it's a tough question. It's a loaded question. Depends on what it's doing. Simpy said, 23, what business should I consider? One that can pay you more money even when you're not doing the work, like I just talked about. GoFlow says, have to believe in that product. I don't know what product you're talking about, but yeah, you probably should believe in any product you're going to sell. Let me see what we got on. We'll do Instagram, then we'll do TikTok last. Shout out to everybody who's watching on Instagram, TikTok. I'm coming over there in one second. So if you got a question, put it in the comments. Soul Art said, yep, I have no asset building opportunities at work, so I invest in real estate. Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. Exactly. So we're looking for something you can invest in now. And by the way, workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's the link in my bio. Those of you who want to work with me directly, you like what you heard here, that's where it happens. Soul Art said, coming up with entrepreneurial ideas is the hardest part, I think. Well, it may be hard for you right now. The good news is that can be solved very easily. Shorty said, entrepreneur ideas, thinking about what you love doing and figure out how you can get paid for it. That can work. Yes. The good news is these days almost any of us can get paid for things that we actually love. Whereas even 20 years ago, that was not so easy. 20 years ago, if you were an artist, for example, like painting, it might not be an easy way to make money from it. Nowadays, you got like Etsy. You can sell directly to consumers. There's a lot of different ways to make money now from stuff you like doing, whereas even 20 years ago, it wasn't so simple. And any of you can start a business from your phone these days, whereas your parents 40 years ago could not start a business from their phone. There were no smartphones. Ion Rap No More said that's a great read. I don't know which book you're referring to, but whichever one I mentioned, you're right. I Am Joe said, very insightful examples. Thank you, sir. Good to see you here. Let me see what else we got. All right, TikTok. I'm going to go through y'all's comments here. By the way, workonyourgameuniversity.com. And if you want to work with me directly, have me as your direct coach. That's where it goes down. That link is in my bio, whatever app you are watching me on. And sometimes people ask, can they see the replays of these? We put these up in our university, in the back end of the university. So let's see what we got on TikTok. Looking. Worthy said, I remember you, bro, DreAllDay.com. Yes, sir. Appreciate you. Timmy said insurance. Yes. Xenome said, how do I get insurance without going through an agent? Well, you're asking the wrong person. I'm not in the insurance industry. But I think if you take that same sentence and put it in Google or Chat GPT, they'll give you plenty of answers. Jamie said, you are so smart and fine. Well, thank you. Jamie, I hope you're a female. Jamie said, I follow Elliot Holland in ETA. I don't know who that is. Cody Sanchez, I know who she is. Cody Sanchez is pretty good. Cat Laddie's mom here. Good morning to you as well. Brown Power Ranger, good morning. Brown Power Ranger said, I can't even read, but you look nice in your suit. All right, I'd suggest you fix that reading part, but thank you. Brown Sugar said, I never spoke to a man in my life that said the words marketing plan or marketing plan sounds smart. You got to get out the house, Brown Power Ranger. Umar said, what do you do? What I'm talking about right here. I help people with this on a professional level. Things that I'm explaining to you all here, I help people actually put this stuff to work in their real lives and in their real businesses and in their real careers. So when I'm explaining to you here, I help people actually do this stuff. I don't just talk about it. Summer Rose, good morning to you, lady. Good to see you. Mark said, how many books have I written? Officially, I've written 35. But hopefully, by the grace of God, I'll get over 100 books out there. I have the material. I got the material. So I'll just leave it at that. Hopefully, I can get to 100. Jay Monique said, my mind is an asset. That is correct. The most important asset you own is your mind. Adapt said, the problem is the future depression, no matter who the president is due to current politics. Well, good thing about problems is Adapt is that they all have solutions. If it didn't have a solution, it wouldn't be a problem. Precious said, you got a boxing match coming up? All right, congrats. Good luck. Monique said, college tuition went up when the government started issuing loans for it. The colleges got greedy. Yes, they did. Yeah, and the banks as well. Fui said, how many suits do you have? I don't know. I got to count. I want more. Promise said, very valuable information. Good stuff. Urban Beauty said, I have Legal Shield, $30. Yeah, shout out to Legal Shield. It's actually a very good product. I like Legal Shield. Very good product. Garrett Corner said, you can sell fries with Trump. I can sell fries with Trump. Yeah, well, I think Trump has done more shifts at McDonald's than Kamala did, personally. Jay Monique said, the 4-Hour Work Week. Yes, Tim Ferriss, that book. Great book. The Junk Lady Og said, great information. Good stuff. Glad you got value out of it. So again, everybody, workonyourgameuniversity.com. If you would like to have me as your direct coach, want to work with me directly, get access to all of our trainings, all of our workshops, all of our best stuff on all of this stuff when it comes to mindset, business, strategy, systems, and accountability, and have me as your coach in the process. That's where it happens. Again, that link is in my bio, wherever you're watching this. I Am Rap said, I'm about to be working 2 jobs to fund my brand. Give me your opinion. Opinion on what? You ain't give me anything to give an opinion on. But what I suggest you do is go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, and I'll give you more than an opinion. I'll give you an opinion if it's necessary, but really what we'll go to work on is what you actually want to do and how you want to make it happen. That's more important in my opinion. So all that said, folks, I do these lives every Monday through Friday at 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern, most of the time, unless I'm traveling or at another engagement. So 8 a.m. Eastern, we'll see you all tomorrow. Appreciate everybody's time and attention. Send me a DM. You got any questions? My assistant is always watching the DM, so we'll catch it. Everybody have a great Monday. We out of here. Work on your game.